All right, man, here we go. Wow. I have I don't even know how to do this introduction the right way, and I hope I get all of this right. Listen, y'all, tonight is a very special live, and you might be wondering, like, hold on, he going live? Clearly, there must be a reason. Where there is a reason. Not often do I get to interview people who are not about interesting, but they really do believe what they say. Yeah, you meet some people and you're like, yeah, I don't know if that person really believes that. No, this woman that you're going to hear from tonight, I promise you by the end of this interview, you will realize two big things. And I'm learning this even as I get to know her. Number one, there's a version of woman you probably have yet to meet if you're a man. You're going to probably meet her tonight. Number two, there's there's more than you realize when it comes to the psychology of a man. And guess what? She's been able to leverage the way we think to be able to build all of the businesses that she has. Let me give you a little bit of background on who we're talking about. And for those of you inside of my Side Business Builders group, go ahead and put your questions down in the comments right now because this is going to get really, really good. For those of you who are watching us live on YouTube, put your questions up. I promise if we can get to them all, we will. And then here's the other thing I'm going to ask. I'm going to ask that as we have this conversation tonight, I want you to let go of reacting to what you hear. Be more open to responding. It's hard to do, but a lot of times what we struggle is we want to react to everything we hear. And one of the coolest things is I just met this woman more than a month ago down in Miami, Florida at the Podcast Summit. And we stood there for almost 30, 40 minutes having a fantastic conversation because I'm interested. I wasn't trying to be interesting, right? And she has a fascinating perspective. So first of all, she hails as a street philosopher. She's a former officer of the United States Army. So go Army. We appreciate that. She's a business observer, an author, a life coach. And one of the things that she's been able to do is take analytical approach in tackling many of the world's most complex ideals and simplifying them into terms that are much more digestible for the average person to adapt to their life. We're going to dive into some of that too. Now, some people might call her a jack of all trades and a master of none. However, she doesn't believe in that because what it screams is a lack of effectiveness. When it comes to being a student and a teacher of life, it becomes very necessary to be well versed in a variety of topics. Let me tell y'all right now, she absolutely is. Her primary focus has been studying psychology and human behavior and adapting her wisdom to her vast background. She did attend, ladies and gentlemen, listen to this, Louisiana State University in Shreveport. Let's go. But here's what she studied. She studied cell and molecular biology. This is pretty cool. This is fascinating. She has all the certifications, ladies and gentlemen. Certification in leadership, a certification from the Army, a logistics university. I mean, she's done it all. Study music, digital animation, photography. She loves music. She don't love all that new stuff, all that mumble stuff going on today. She's like me. She like the old school stuff where they actually has something to say. And here's the other thing that I want you to know. She's also been able to work in the sales industry, in direct sales as well, whether it be in automotive, whether it be in direct sales. And here's the cool part. She's also doing something that I absolutely love doing. And we're going to dive into more of this. She's been able to take a lot of what she sees philosophically and put it into real world actionable intelligence, which is really important. Now y'all like, dang, well, who is this lady? Let's go ahead and introduce now to the world. Those of you in the Side Business Builder Group, welcome. For those of you who are first-time guests here, this is the Grow Your Side Business podcast. We help high achievers be able to build high-value, profitable side business. Tonight's guest is none other than Princella Carr of her own podcast. And I want her to talk about some of this podcast too, because man, it's juicy now. She got a whole lot to talk about inside of her podcast. Princella, listen, first of all, welcome to the show. I don't even know, like, I got so many places I want to start, but I know where I'm going to start. How are you doing this evening?
I'm fantastic so much. Thank you. I appreciate you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, listen, um, when we met a little over a month ago in Miami, there were two things that stood out about meeting you. Number one, you were um, very resolute in your approach.
Hmm.
You had no waver. There was no like, I'm trying to say this to impress you. No, it's like, no, I woke up like this, like literally, right? Like this is
Yes.
who I am. That was the first thing that I thought that was cool. The second
Hmm.
thing that I noticed that was really interesting during our conversation is that you are not what I would say some people say down in the comments, because I read some of your comments and the way some people talk in those comments. I think you are approachable. I think you are
Hmm.
open. I
Yes.
also think though that you understand yourself well enough to allow for others to share who they are without you feeling intimidated. And I just
Correct.
respect that about you. And I want to tell you that up front in the conversation. So, let's start. I know where I want to start. I really want to start with your ideal. You have a way of thinking, and we titled this. For those of you who saw the title of this in the thumbnail, male psychology and how to use it. Now, here's the thing: some people would say, Princella, okay, that sounds like some wild stuff. That sounds like okay, she's just another one of these people out here, talking on the fringes of life. But you have a background that supports what you're talking about. United States Army, leadership
Hmm.
certification. You study behavior and psychology down to the molecular level. Help just give us a good understanding of this journey that you went on because it seems like you got more. The more you learned, the more you wanted to know. So
Yes.
talk to us. Let's start here. Why did this like how did you get down this path and what was scary about it? What did you learn even about yourself that maybe you didn't know before starting to go down this behavioral psychology road?
Well, I believe that we are all born kind of knowing what we are here for and what we want to do. But somewhere along the line, we forget and we get caught up in the tides of the world.
Mm,
So at a very young age, I knew that I wanted to break generational curses, right? But what made me know that was my family background, right? The experiences that I was having within my own family that let me know that there was a problem that I wanted to change. So, because of this, one of the things that I wanted to do was prove to my family that I was going to be somebody, right? And that's where it all started because I was black sheep. I wasn't one of the preferred children. And because of that, a lot of my uh, cousins were favored over me, and they kind of pit us up against each other in terms of competition. And when they looked at me, it was always this idea that I would be a failure. Out of all the children, they chose me to say that I would be the failure. And there was something in me that wanted to prove them wrong. Not only prove them wrong, but also for me to break these generational curses that I wanted to break. So the environment and the situation that I was in put this fire in me to do. So by me being alone and having to prove something to a group of people that didn't support me, I chose a field that was like the most difficult field. I knew that I wanted to help people. I knew I had a nurturing side of me. So I thought that going to medical school and being a doctor was my way of helping people, which would also help me, prove my family wrong and all of that. So I chose the science field. Now, what I learned about the human body is that when you're low on certain nutrients, your body will cause you to crave certain things just so it can pull the nutrients out. So you thinking consciously, oh, I just want, you know, uh, some peanuts, or I want some fish. You think you want that, but your body is craving a missing nutrient. So it's the
Give me an
same thing
example
on
of
a
a nutrient that might be missing if I'm hungry, because I know I like to eat. So I like this conversation. So talk to
well,
me
like if you
about
want to,
what
like
would
if you
you
want to,
change.
if you was craving peanuts or whatever, you might be low on some protein or whatever. You might be low on vitamin A or something, which would be the reason why you want carrots or something, right? You might be low on some vitamin that your body needs. So it will manipulate you. The infinite intelligent being that's within you will manipulate your conscious mind to think that it wants something because, oh, it just tastes good. No, it's a missing nutrient. So that's the same thing that happens on a spiritual level. On a spiritual level, you may want to go to the military like I did, right? On a spiritual level, you might think that, oh, I want to go to the military because, I just like shooting guns or whatever conscious reason you might say. But on a spiritual level, it is because your soul is craving some wisdom or some knowledge that you need to acquire for your life's journey. And that's the path that it's trying to push you down. So that's the same thing that happened with me when I chose to go to school for pre-med because I was in cell and molecular operation with the intent to go to medical school, right? Because I knew I wanted to help people, but I thought that was the route. But what the creator was pushing me to do was to go down that path to learn science first. Then, once I got all of that information out of the science field, I lost all interest of going to medical school. Interesting thing, right? Um, when I was 18, my family life was so harsh that I just wanted to get away. So, and from age 13, 14, I just couldn't wait till I turned 18. So once I turned 18, the morning of my 18th birthday, I joined the military. I went to the MEF station, signed up, and after my graduation, I was off to boot camp 4 days after I graduated, right? These are all of the desires that the creator put in me to go down. But I was thinking that I was going to be in these professions, but that's not what the creator wanted, right? For me to be in these professions. I started to think about all of the patterns that I was seeing because for every job or every field that I went worked in, I realized that there was a consistent pattern no matter what field it was in. So going from science to um, leadership in the military, spending 8 years in transportation, right? Going from there to project management to selling cars to selling um, doing direct sales, all being in the music industry, none of these professions, I mean, not any one of them are congruent. They don't build on top of each other. They're just all random jobs. And I'm like, okay, how in the hell am I supposed to use all of this knowledge? None of this stuff goes together. On the surface, it doesn't. On the surface, it doesn't. But I noticed that every last one of these fields had the same pattern, which showed me something that the truth stands the test of time and it does not change. It doesn't matter your um, genre, your whatever field you're in, it's all the same thing. And so once I realized that, I started to apply that to my individual life. And this is how I started to build up knowledge and wisdom, being able to see the patterns of life.
Mm,
And based on those patterns, you can predict outcomes,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yes. Hmm.
So, all
And
right,
so that's how.
you mentioned, childhood being very difficult. One of the things that I
Mhm.
know about the subconscious is the subconscious never, doesn't care if you're telling a joke or being, serious. it only knows whatever you say, and whatever you say, it is what it is, and it will make sure
Right.
that you get exactly whatever you put out there.
Mhm.
You mentioned the trauma that you went through as a child. Talk about what that was like, because you mentioned you were the black sheep of the family.
Mhm.
Talk about some of the things that were going on as a child that, in one regard, you only saw it as, hey, I just can't wait to get out of here, and I'm going to use the military as the way to get
Mhm.
myself to remove from this. But
Yeah.
talk about what was going on as a kid that you could tell, because sometimes as adults we don't even realize some of the childhood trauma is why we are the way we are today, because we haven't done the identification of it. We haven't been
Mhm.
able to self-identify as much as you've been able to, right? A lot of people, and some
Right.
people are scared to do it. Let's just be real. Some people don't want to
Right.
go down that path because it brings up old feelings and it brings up things that they don't want to do. What was going on in
Correct.
your childhood, and how did you start to be okay with going, but I gotta face this thing though? I can't just know it was there but not want to face it. Talk to me about that.
Okay. Well, so my dad was in the military, right? And he was in the Navy. So we were all together, my mom, my brother, and everything, in South Carolina. And my mom and dad separated due to domestic violence situations. So um, he went off to sea, and we went back home to her home, well, which is my father's hometown too. We went back home to the hometown, and um, I would, me and my brother would be at my grandmother's house, my maternal grandmother's house, and my maternal grandmother had 8 grandchildren, but my brother and myself were not her favorites. She didn't like her daughter, which was my mother, and because of that, she didn't really favor me and my brother. And so some of the things that my grandmother would do is we would get out of school and my grandmother would lock me and my brother outside all day and keep all of the other grandkids in the house. And she wouldn't feed us. My grandmother would let us starve, really. And she would let us sit outside until my mother would get off work at 9 o'clock at night. She wouldn't let us in the house. She wouldn't even let us do our homework over there, right? And sometimes when she would cook food, she would cook a lot of food, and she would tell me and my brother that it was not enough for us to eat. She didn't cook enough for me and my brother to eat. But my aunts would get off to come pick up their children around 5 or 6 o'clock, and they would come over and eat and get seconds. And then my grandmother would put the food up. But sometimes 7 days would go by, and the food that she told me and my brother wasn't enough to eat, before she got ready to throw it away after it had been sitting there for 7 days, before she give it to the dog, she would say, Princella and my brother, do you want this before I give it to the dog? This is how my grandmother was treating us, right? So she had some issues psychologically because she grew up in that environment. So she had some self worth issues. And because of her self worth issues, I was physically, emotionally, and psychologically abused by my mother. And because of this, me not having any support, right? And not only am I getting this treatment at home, I'm getting bullied at school, right?
Mm,
So I've been bullied my whole life from elementary all the way up into high school, right?
mm,
So I lived a life of solitude, and my outlet was art. So I draw. I'm an artist, and I also rap. I do music, and that was the outlet that I turned to escape from all of the trauma that I was dealing with growing up. Even in that trauma, I still did well in school, right?
wow.
I, I scored I scored a 28 on the ACT, And when I went to college, I didn't have to take any prerequisites, so I was able to go to school and go straight into calculus.
Oh
Um,
my God, man.
so even yeah.
You know, when you hear a story like that, a lot of people would say, Princella, we want to be sympathetic to what you've been through, right?
Hmm.
But the approach that you today, the Princella today takes, um, doesn't use that as an excuse or advice. Doesn't use those real traumatic moments to you as even a weapon against others. You seem to really have found a way to not make that thing. I always say that sometimes many of us are living from a moment and not towards
Hmm.
one. And so
Right.
typically when we have these traumatic situations in our life, we've been living our whole life from that moment. Groundhog Day after
Hmm.
Groundhog Day, right? We treat everybody based on that thing. And that can be
Right.
dangerous, right? Because you push the whole world away at that point, right?
Correct.
You do not seem to have that. Um, especially as a black woman. Now, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Okay. You grew up in
Hmm.
Shreveport. Okay.
Yes.
Gotcha. So my wife went to Xavier and she used to live over in Metairie.
Oh,
Um,
really?
yep. Actually, so oddly enough, I just finally went down to New Orleans for the first time. My wife surprised me for my birthday party this year. We actually celebrated down in
Hmm.
New Orleans. I had a whole lot of fun. I'll be going
Yeah.
back. Um, but you've had you have these moments when you're a kid. You get to the military. You were talking about some of the things that you started noticing patterns as you picked up other jobs beyond the military. But I want to go back to the military a second. What was it about the military that was helpful to you in becoming the person you are today?
Okay. So to know that the intention of joining the military was to learn, because I didn't know anything when I hit 18. It's like, okay, I'm 18 now, and or I'm 17, and I'm like, okay, I still don't know nothing. How do you function in the world? I know absolutely nothing. And knowing that I don't have a support system, I didn't, hold on, let me get this. Okay. Knowing that I don't have a support system, I had two choices. I could go and figure out the world in the world
Mm-hmm.
and get bounced around, or I could go to what I would feel like is a more safe way to learn and go to a controlled environment like the military and pick up some things. And it's the best decision that I have ever made in my life, right?
Interesting.
Yes,
Wow.
I would. If I had to go back, I would join the military again, right? And the discipline, the organization, right? The getting in as a buck private and then gaining my commission, so I was able to see what it's like to be a follower and what the responsibilities are of a person who is in a leadership position, what it takes to move from one to another. You know what I mean? So being in a platoon, in a squad, to leading that platoon, I learned a lot, and I was able to see my own willpower, test my own strength, right? So the when I got into officer candidate school, we started with 150 candidates. We only graduated 50, and I was one of those 50. And one of the things that I remember, right, because it was a really tough environment to be in, and that showed me a lot about myself, because I knew that I had an iron will, and I wasn't gonna let nobody watch me fail. See, I'm not gonna let nobody watch me fail. I'm not gonna let nobody watch me quit, right? So we had ruck marches, right? This is one of my most prominent memories, and I'm very proud of this. Okay. We had three ruck marches. The first one was 5 miles, and you wear a 45-pound rucksack and you carry an 8-pound weapon, and you have to meet a certain time. You have I can't even remember the time limit. We just know it was a time limit that we had to make 5 miles in. No breaks, no stopping. Roll the entire time. On the 5 mile ruck march, I was like second to the last person coming in. I was struggling, and I think I had 5 minutes to make it, or I was going to be out. But my feet were blistered up. I was at the end, and I was like, I'm not going to quit. I got 5 minutes to make it to the end of this line. And I barely made it. I made it, but I barely made it. And then, like 3 weeks later, we had a 7 mile ruck march. And the first thing that went through my mind is like, how am I going to make it for 7 miles if I was struggling making it on the 5? Well, when 7 miles came, I wasn't at the end no more. I was in the middle. I was in the middle, and I had plenty of time at the end. Right? Then after that, we had a 10 mile ruck march. It went from 5 to 7 to 10. And I'm like, damn, they pushing me. They pushing me. So on the 10 mile ruck march, I wasn't at the end. I wasn't at the middle. I was at the front of the line this time. I was at the front of the line, right? And everybody thought, when they knew that I was going to officer candidate school, people thought I wasn't going to make it. I've had people speaking ill over my life, my entire life, telling me I wasn't going to be nothing. My own family was telling me I wasn't going to be nothing. The people in the military told me I wasn't going to make it, right? And I got people now telling me I wasn't going to make it. I don't let people determine my trajectory. I use that as fuel, because I'm not going to let myself down, because how you see me don't matter. The only thing that matters is how I see myself. Right? And I'm going to take all of this and use it as fuel and energy, and I'm going to convert it into something positive for myself. And that's how I've always looked at my life. And it has done me wonders.
That is amazing. That's amazing. So, first of all, let me say hello to everybody in YouTube land. We got over 192 people over here watching right now, just in YouTube alone. We see y'all. I see the comments and everything else going crazy. You guys continue to provide your questions and your thoughts. They clearly your folks travel because they love you over here, and
Yes.
they are all in them comments. Um,
Yes.
so I wanna move to, you talked about, these, as you saw all of these different companies and businesses that you worked in, you noticed none of them really built on top of each other.
Right.
But before the show, you and I were talking about, like, one of the skill sets that you have is being able to recognize patterns,
Yes.
right? Let's talk about the pattern that you started noticing between automotive direct sales, between the work you were doing, but from the military, all those different things. What were some of the patterns that you recognized that you saw as like, hey, I can actually leverage this now because I can see, it's almost like seeing behind the matrix, right? Like I see the ones and zeros of how this
Yes.
stuff is working. Tell me how you developed that, and then what did you start noticing for yourself?
What the pattern that I saw to begin with was systemization. No matter what you're looking at, there is a system there. So the first place I saw the system was in a cell, the cell, and how that operates, right? Then when I went to chemistry and organic chemistry, and I learned how to build a protein, I noticed another system, because these systems build on each other. Then, as I was in calculus and stuff, there was another system. Then I got out of that, working at, thinking about when I was working at McDonald's, thinking about the school system, thinking about politics, right? Because I had delved into politics and understood how that works. Everything is a system, right? So whether it was going to school, whether it was in the sales industry, whether it was in the military, it was all system and organization. So that was the beginning of the pattern. And then I noticed that a person's life should be run like a business, because the problem with humans in their own personal lives is unorganization and disorganization and no system, right? No understanding. So there's a lot of people just moving around willy-nilly. And no matter what you do, you always have to learn the basics. Everything is built off of the basics, right? And it's all centered around human connection and human communication. All of this is the same no matter what industry that you're in. Not only did I do this, I was also a truck driver, right? And so as a truck driver, I drove trucks for 6 years, and it's the same exact thing, right? With whether you're managing trucks or you're managing a CRM, it's the same thing when you're communicating with humans, when you're trying to make plans, when you're planning a route. When it came to planning my route on for the trucks, it reminded me of planning my route for territory to knocking on these doors, right? It's the same thing, just a different industry, right? So with that, I learned that humans are the same in each one of these areas. Humans are the same. And guess what? No matter what you're doing, you have to sell. So whether I'm selling you an idea or whether I'm selling you a product or selling you myself, you have to have the ability to communicate an idea, right? So these are all of the patterns that I saw in all of the industries, whether I was in sales or driving trucks or in um, being a part of the military. So I took for each one of these fields, I took core principles and I took them with me everywhere I went, right? And they kept building on and building on and building on and building on. And that is what led me to really digging in human behavior by seeing how entities work, because entity is nothing but another form of human that's disconnected from the human itself, right? So you grow a business, which is an entity, right, based on how you would grow a person.
Okay. All right. So we here now. All right. Then let's just do this because you. All right. You grow a business the way you would grow a human.
Yes.
Um. Let's start at the beginning. Let's say I've started my side business, and let's say I'm between 0 and 3 years.
Mhm.
Help me understand what you mean, given the context of what you just said.
Okay, so the fact of the matter, if you have a child, right, you have to nurture that child. That child doesn't have language. That child doesn't have, and you have to continue to put fuel into that child and teach that child or program that child and set that child up the way that you want that child to express themselves in this environment. Within a 0 to 3 year period, that's the same thing that you have to do, because your business doesn't have any foundation, it has no language, it has nothing. And so you have to first create a philosophy, right? Which is your mission statement, okay? All humans are based on biological programming first, and then the psychological programming, which is the um, philosophy. You have to instill a philosophy and build around that philosophy in order to uh, build this. entity, which is the brainchild, because this is what we call the brainchild. And so you have to give that brainchild nutrients. What are the nutrients to that? Well, before you go to the nutrients, you have to build the brain of the entity, because the human has a brain, right? You have to build the brain of the entity, which would be what your, if you're going to have a board of directors, which would be your mastermind, right? You have to put these pieces in place. So you have to have a sales department, right? You have to have the sales force, you have to have the management squad. All of this is the brain, right? So when you're building the entity, you build the brain, you also build the mind, and then you build these branches, which will be your nerves, right? To, you build that, and then you feed it. You feed it, right? You feed it the positive things that you need to make it grow and to express what you've already programmed into the brain, right? So you build a business the way you would build a human. How are humans created in the womb? If you learn, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. We look at Henry Ford. Henry Ford is giving credit for, the automotive plant, but who did Henry Ford get his wisdom from? He got his wisdom from George Washington Carver, who studied plants, and they modeled the automotive plant, the manufacturing plant, off of nature. And this is how you build anything. You look at the wisdom. You don't reinvent the wheel. You look in the wisdom that's already there, and that's in Mother Nature.
There's so much in what you just said right now. All right. So I like this because I think there's so many people right now talking about how to build a business. All of these
Amaya, come
internet,
close my door.
all of these internet and social media streets who are all talking about this stuff. And you know what they typically do? Are talking about the fast track. They're talking about, oh, do it fast, do it this way, do it this way. And there's not a lot of people talking about the fact that this is going to take time. Like you gotta put some time into this, right? Like this is going to take some time. You have to install the culture. You have to
Mhm.
install the systems. You have to install the modus operandi. You have to install, and guess what? That takes time. Now, if based on what you're saying, so when you think about the businesses that you have today and what you've been building, leveraging this type of thinking, what's been um what's been kind of the aha moment for you, like the big aha moment as you saw it this way, and then you were like, well, I'm gonna build my own businesses, I'm gonna do my own, I'm not just getting these certifications on reason, I'm gonna build businesses for myself. What were some of those big ahas after you realized I gotta build this thing just like we would build a person?
No, it for me. It was a journey of collecting all this data. I knew it, right? It was not for me. It was never a, oh my God. I'm just I'm just a really deep thinker. For me, it was the confidence in myself to trust that I could do what I learned. And I didn't have confidence in myself because of the system trying to live and up to how the system say you're supposed to do stuff. And so because my knowledge was so disconnected and my work history was so disconnected, I did not have confidence to get out here and do something that was unconventional. But the creator will, when you're ready, even if you don't think you're ready, the creator will make you show yourself when she knows that you're ready. So I had a pattern of leaving jobs and then going to get another job, right? So I was always successful in anything I put my hands on, but I worked really, really hard to do this stuff, right? And I would burn myself out. So, but I couldn't stay at any of these jobs long because I would get burnt out and I would lose a lot of interest. And I would I would have to find something else that would stimulate me because I'm not, once things get monotonous, I'm just not effective in it anymore. Okay. And so I found myself spinning my wheels using all of my effort, my physical effort to do everything. And so my last job, which was truck driving, I told the owner that I was going to leave in May. I planned on leaving in May because in my heart and my soul, I said, I'm not going to be driving trucks no more. This is it. This will be the last trucking company I'm driving for. And no matter what I got to do to, to, to do it on my own and I'm going to do that. Well, it didn't go as planned. And he ended up laying me off at the beginning of the year, January, right after I bought a brand new car. So I just got myself into $40,000 worth of debt and then I lose my job. But I knew that I was not going back to I'm not going to another trucking company. I refused to. So I knew that over a 20-year period, all this wisdom that I have, all this experience, I have all the tools that I need to be successful in what I'm doing. And so I was writing a book. I'd started businesses before, I'd written business plans and everything, but my heart was not in these things and I was doing them for other people and I wasn't doing them for myself. I was playing the submissive role, because they say as a woman you gotta submit to your man and help him. I tried that. I tried that. Tried
That
to
didn't
play
work too well for you.
background. No, it didn't work because first of all, the guys was jealous of my abilities, and it just did not work out in that setup. And so I only did that because of societal programming that I felt like I just had to have a guy to do it. Like I did not feel comfortable doing it on my own, but the creator wanted me to do it on my own because the fact of the matter is I've been doing everything on my own the entire time. I was doing all the work when I was helping these dudes, they didn't help me do anything. Right. So the creator pushed me out the window, it pushed me out the door. And I knew I had all the skill to do it. And I was writing my book. I started writing my book maybe in November of last year. And I would get off work. I would work all day, go pick up my daughter, and come home. And I would pick on my book. And I would do this every day. And then I would do my shows because I had a show that I was doing on YouTube, still do. And I was juggling all of this. And when I lost my job, I was like, okay, I'm going to finish this book and I'm going to sell my book because I know that I got gold, that I can add value to people's lives. And I finished that book in a month, got it all done up, and put it on the market. And I could have not been prepared for what happened when I did that. I couldn't have been prepared.
Tell me what happened.
I lost my job January 3rd of this year.
Okay.
And I filed for unemployment because I didn't know how I was going. I knew I wasn't going back, and I just needed something to carry me through. I was
Yeah.
making $1,000. I was making maybe $1,200 a week, barely bringing that home.
Hmm.
And then my income went to zero after that because I didn't even get unemployment. I would have never known that I would have went from making $1,200 a week to about to touch 300,000 before the end of the year.
Hold on. Time out. Okay. Well, this show is over. Clearly. Wow. Whoa. Okay. And it was because you put the time in and it was this book, right? And y'all, if y'all haven't seen the title of this book, we'll make sure that provide it down in the description. But it's called The Game: 41 Shades of Men, and I want to
Yes.
dive into some of this. Man, this perspective that you have, and that's why when I sent you over the thumbnail, like I already knew what I was going to title it,
Yes.
because of our conversation that we had in Miami.
Hmm.
And you know, some people would say, okay, Princella, that's, these are some extreme views, but extreme to who, right? I guess it's all
Correct.
relative. But
Right.
let's talk about, how did you develop this book? Because the book is published, but there were things that you had to experience, things that you had to go through, stuff that you had to sit down and write these thoughts in a way that, to your point, I love what you sent me over. You said, I want to make this stuff practical to the average person every day, right? But
Hmm.
it's a different angle because as a man, listen, we got ego, Priscilla, and
I know.
I like my ego, and I like it when
Hmm.
my wife stroke my ego, and I'm happy about my ego. The fact that you said, no, I'm gonna show you ladies how to use it, that I
Hmm.
thought was very intriguing, because typically when you hear that kind of stuff, right, people get a little skittish, right? I've
Hmm.
been telling my wife forever, I'm like, look, honey, the thing that you have that most men don't have is the power to be able to not only negotiate, but you have this uncanny ability to do things in a way that a man could never do. Like, we could both be looking at the same business deal, but a woman will see that thing in a certain way, and you be like, how in the world did she come up with that? But it's just the way women see things. So talk to me about some of the things that how did you arrive at some of these ideals in the book? And let's, come on, like, share, like, what's one of these 41 shades that's in the book that you're trying to communicate to the world and to us men in some regards, but to women as well.
Well, men are just collateral damage, because um, you can't reason with men. They don't listen. Okay, because y'all have egos and you want to feel superior to women, you don't listen to women. It takes a man to listen to a woman. It takes a man to be influenced, to allow himself to be influenced by a woman. The average male never reaches manhood, so he ain't listening to no woman. So the only way a man listens is through behavior, no contact. That's Men don't understand nothing but
I got you.
silence and no
Okay,
contact, right?
I got you.
Yeah.
All right. By the
So,
way, the chat is lighting up right now, so let's keep this
mhm,
on. I like this
yeah. So, when it comes to the game, 41 Shades of Men, instead of me telling women to do something, I understand human psychology and how to get people to move because I've been trained in this. See, by having a sales career and being top salesman in the car industry, door to door sales, and cell phones, I have a very personable personality, and I understand how to talk to people and I understand how to sell to people. Okay. Sales is practical human psychology, putting human psychology into practice. So you got to be really good to walk up to somebody's door who ain't expecting you to be there and sell them something that they wasn't expecting to buy. I was top salesman on door to door sales, and I was top salesman in the car industry too. I sold in my first 10 days of selling cars ever. I sold 9 cars in my first 10 days. I switched dealerships and did the same exact thing. And I got Salesman of the Month my first full month of selling cars. And I got me a General Motors ring within 6 months of selling cars when I switched dealerships. Right. So I have been able to put human psychology into practice. But it's very interesting that because I pay attention in life. See, let me tell you something. I'd like you to come back and do the side by side screen call and talk to you. Yeah. So I told you I recognize patterns, right?
Yeah.
And the information is out there if you pay attention. But see, let me tell you something. Ain't nothing in life free. You're gonna pay one way or another.
Who you telling?
Ain't nothing in life free. You're gonna
Facts.
pay one way or another. It's gonna cost you either money, you're gonna pay in lost opportunities, you're going to pay in attention, all right, or you're gonna pay in getting your head bust to the white meat.
100%.
Either way, you gonna pay for your education. Well, I paid in all of those ways. I got my head bust to the white meat, right? I lost a lot of money, right? I lost some opportunities, but I also paid attention to all of those lessons, which has made me a wizard in male psychology because I learned not just by being in relationships, because see, that's one dynamic of male behavior, how he behaves in relationships. But there's another aspect to him, which is how he behaves in the work environment. And a person, one thing I learned in the military, my drill sergeants drummed it into my head. Attention to detail, soldier. Attention to detail, soldier. Leadership is in everything you do. How you tie your shoe is how you live your life. How you make your bed, that's how you live your life. And that's the truth. How a dude go to work and what he do at work is how he act at home. It's how he act in his friendships. So not only do I understand the male from a relationship point of view and how he behaves there, I've worked in male dominated industries. And by me being a tomboy and not somebody that they after to try to manipulate to have sex with, since I'm one of y'all, you talk to me like I'm one of y'all, right?
You
And
know what?
you,
Now,
mm-hmm,
you know what? That's absolutely true. So, my wife, I always say, she's not your average female. She's like one of the dudes. Because my wife knows how to operate. She worked in Microsoft back in the day. She's been an executive corporate vice president for, large Fortune 50 companies. And she's lived her world corporately around all of these men, but she learned the game in such a way that she could play it to her advantage. And I think
mm-hmm,
one of the most important clarion calls I think that we need, I will say, not only just in our community, but I would say just women in general is need to understand is that um, as men, to your point, like right, once you get your ego kicked in, um, it's you don't try to go back there again because you know how dangerous that can be. I've had my
mm-hmm,
ego kicked in. So when my wife and I met, like she knew like I'm probably too transparent to a fault. I don't mind telling her the truth. I don't mind being
mm-hmm,
vulnerable, but that's not because I'm trying to be somebody special. It's just because I know what the alternative look like, and it's ugly
mm-hmm.
and it sucks. And guess what? It don't get you none of what your actual heart desires. You were talking about that earlier. It don't get you the core of what you want by
Right.
operating in some of that ego stuff. I want to know this. You mentioned you studied, you paid attention. Military told you, hey, how you tie that shoe? Pay attention to detail. What's one of the details that you are trying to get across to women right now? Beyond just writing the book, but something that like you are really like pushing hard that you want women to understand so that I heard you mention this in one of your episodes. You trying to get women to step up into who they really should be, who God said they really should be. So what's one of those main principles?
Well, I'm a student of the occult and esoteric wisdom. And so, um, principle, when you stand on principle, it it is a indisputable truth that transcends or that crosses, that permeates all fields, right? Standing on principle. And so what I try to push them to understand is that in the seven hermetic principles, you have the principle of gender, which is the same on all planes: mental, physical, and spiritual, or physical, mental, and spiritual. And the masculine and the feminine are principles that exist within and without. The principle of gender is masculine and feminine. And when the masculine and feminine come together, you produce life. Life is a result of masculine and feminine working together. Each human being is a living and breathing organism, which means that masculine and feminine principles are operating within them right now. So within me is masculine and feminine, and within you is masculine and feminine. Otherwise, you would cease to exist. That's within the self. But externally, you have the masculine and feminine principle, which is displayed right here, right now. You are the masculine principle because you're in a male vessel, and I'm the feminine principle because I'm in the female vessel. So the only purpose for the masculine vessel and feminine vessel to create life would be through sex, to create a baby. That is the only purpose for procreation on the physical level. But a male is not needed to manifest your desires because you have the masculine and feminine within yourself as woman. So when you create an idea, which is the feminine principle, ideas, imaginations, the abstract, when you take that and then you marry it, when you take that, okay, I'll tie it. I'll tie it in a minute. You're missing my thought process. I know. When you take the imagination and the ideas and you marry it with the masculine work ethic, willpower, and drive and determination, when you marry these two actions and ideas, you manifest into your physical reality. The average person does not know what it means to be masculine and to be feminine. And everybody's idea that the female is supposed to just sit here and look like an inanimate object that makes the male feel good in an area on his body is false. True femininity is a woman getting in tune with her creative self, right? Because that's what it is. And that's what I push women to do, to be the producers, to be who Creator made you to be, which is the creative vessel. No creation happens without the feminine because the feminine is the creator.
100%, 100%. So, you've written this book, and here's the thing. Let me say this. When we met in Miami and we were talking, I think I might have mentioned this to you when we were there, but I think it's really important that not to only have these principles that you live by, not to only know and be able to see these patterns, but you took the what I consider the most important step of any understanding. You put it out there for the world. Now, for a
Hmm.
lot of people, let's be real, Princella, that can be scary because some of
Yes,
us don't. We don't want the pushback. We don't want the commentary. We don't want the smoke, basically, right? We don't want
right,
people taking issue with how we may think about something, and that's just I think that's just more lack of maturity because there's 8 billion people on the planet. Not everybody's going to agree with you, and that's okay.
correct,
But we can all learn from each other because having a disagreement doesn't mean that you got to hate the other person. It means you might come to an understanding of why that person feels and sees things
correct.
the way they do. Um, I'm looking at the comments now, and yeah, it's a whole lot going on in these comments right now. But
Mhm.
here's where I want to go with this. So you write this book, you on track to do over
Mhm.
$300,000. You didn't
Mhm.
see this coming. You've done, and let's just help the people understand, because I think people are missing the fact that your train is out the station and it's moving. You were on
Yes.
Valuetainment, that's Patrick Bet-David's world, twice,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You've been killing it right now on in different YouTube channels. You're talking to different people. You are sharing this thing that you didn't even know it was going to turn into this fast, right?
Right.
How does it feel today after knowing that low point that you told me about just a few months ago?
Mhm. It it just it feels rewarding, comforting. I always knew that I was of value. It was really just about stepping out on faith and knowing that I have the talent and the skills to bring forth, right? It's just trusting. And it feels good to know that the creator made a decision for me to get out of that job and force me to fall on what I already knew. The creator forced me to trust myself, right? But so I feel good knowing that I no longer have to doubt myself, because that was the big piece that was holding me back practically all my life.
Oh, that's good. No longer having to doubt yourself. That's a powerful. That's got to be a powerful feeling at
Mm-hmm.
this point. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I want to dive into some practicality now. Um, we got people on here who are building, side businesses. People who are learning to take this journey for real. What are some things that you could share, and some principles? We talked earlier about seeing this business as raising a kid, right? And all the things that it's going to take in order to be able to build this business the right way. What are some things that you see are important for people to consider as they're building that side business? And why do you think that it is an important journey that a lot of people who have the skill that somebody else would pay for out there in the marketplace, why do you think they should go on that journey? Divorce the outcome for a second, right? Because we don't know what we don't know. You could start a business and flop tomorrow, right? But why do you
Mm-hmm.
think that starting and building that side business is a really good exercise for people who are high achievers?
Well, if you're building a side business, you should be building a side business because it's who you are, trying to escape the slave labor that you're doing. Because if you're not doing something that's in alignment with yourself and your purpose, then you will not put in the effort that you need to put in, and you will not be successful. Because why are you building a side business? Are you building it because it's something to do? Are you trying to be in somebody else's lane? Your side business should be who you really are. That as you're building it and nurturing it, it allows you a gateway or a road for you to connect with your authentic self while you add value to other people's lives. If you're not adding value to other people's lives, then what are you doing it for, right? What are you doing it for? So if you're going to do a side business, make sure you're doing something that truly speaks to life purpose.
Yeah. Where did you struggle when you first decided to build something outside of your day job?
Just confidence, because
Okay.
what I'm speaking is so anti the establishment. I felt like nobody would listen to me.
Hmm.
I felt like people did not want to hear what I had to say,
Hmm.
because I'm like, I know all this stuff. What am I supposed to do with all this information? And it's like, and what added to that feeling of a lack of confidence is because I was popular on Facebook at one point, right? I had videos that hit 1 million views on Facebook. around 2015, 2016 era. And then Facebook, I started getting banned. Algorithms started suppressing me. And I just felt like, hey, nobody wants to hear my point of view anyway, right? And so, because of that, I was hesitant to get out and speak, right? But my soul kept calling me to do it. And as I was driving trucks for this one guy, I just said, you know what? I'm going to buy some equipment because I can't. I if I'm going to do this podcasting thing or whatever, I can't just turn on the camera and be like I'm going live. I have to come back with intention, and I have to come back like I'm really trying to do something. So I got a 0% interest credit card, and I charged $11,000 on the credit card and bought all of my studio equipment. This is while I was still working, making $1,000 a week.
Paying the price. I hope y'all just heard that. Let's stop and pause. Because if I could rewind what you just said the way I could in real time, I would. You were paying the price for the future that you now sit in as your present.
Hmm.
And I think it's really important that we remember, what did she just say probably about 30 minutes ago? You're going to pay the price, whether you do it financially, ego wise, or something, or many people are paying the price because they won't even step out and spend $11,000.
Correct.
They won't
Fear.
even.
Right.
So you're paying the price in ignorance. I heard
Right.
Alex Hermosi say, if you make, $100,000 at your day job right now, and you want to make 1 million in your business, well, it's costing you $900,000 a year to be stay
Hmm.
ignorant. So either
Right.
you willing to pay that price in some shape, form, or fashion, or guess what? You will continue to pay that price because you aren't willing to do the investment. And I know exactly where you are. My wife and I invested over $200,000 just in business coaching. And I'm gonna tell
Right.
you, one of the craziest things happened because I was a tightwad. I didn't like investing in those kind of circles. But I'm gonna tell you one of the interesting things that happened, and I'd be curious to kind of your thoughts on this stuff.
Hmm.
Um, I walked in the room and two big things stuck out to me. I
Hmm.
realized these people are no smarter than me. That was the
Right.
first. That was like the big first aha. Right,
Yeah.
walking into some of these rooms, these people making crazy money. The
Right.
second thing that happened was, at this level, people don't compete. They're looking for different ways to collaborate as long as you have something of value to offer the world that resonates with
Correct.
them. And when I figured that out, I was like, okay, that's that's the difference, right?
Right.
It's a real big difference. What have you noticed as you've gotten to meet the Patrick Bet Davids of the world? These people that you've gotten a chance to have them know your name now and reach out. What are you learning? What are some of those patterns that you're learning about the people that, from a distance, most people would have a whole bunch of crazy negative things to say, but you get a chance to meet some of these people up close and personal. What are some of the things you're learning?
Well, they all have a mission. They all have a mission, and they stick to their mission, right?
Mm,
Um, successful people, successful people don't spend their time complaining and talking about other people, right? They spend their time focused on what it is that they're doing. You can Empty vessels make the loudest noises, right? And so a lot of these a lot of these people that I've met that are actually doing something, they they are less combative when you talk to them. They're less combative. Right? And the reason is because when a male has money, typically when a male has money, what you say doesn't impact him too hard because he has the ability to get what he wants. So he doesn't see the world through the lens of a broke person, right? And so I like speaking to other ethnicities. I like speaking to um, people of scholarly backgrounds and high socioeconomic positions because you get a different conversation out of them.
it's very true. I will say one of the things that I think we struggle with as a community is reaching out to other communities, is being
Mhm.
open to another way of doing things. We do struggle with this idea because we think, well, we know it all over here. And it's like, nah, there's somebody else who's already figured this game out. But
Mhm.
they tend to not have people who look like us reach out all the time, not be
Right.
curious enough, not be willing to walk in without the ego, but walk in and say, look, I'm here to learn, right? Um, as you've been on this journey, you know, the book is doing well now. Um,
Mhm.
goals tend to change, right? Some of them you reach, and then you kind of start to shift and look for that next challenge or the thing that you're after. What is your goal over the next year, 18 months?
Well, I have a few people that I want to talk to over the next year. So I plan on talking to those people. But overall, I've created a course that I want to try to get licensed uh, for to be in institutions. Okay,
Hmm.
um, and it's rooted in behavioral science and human psychology. So I've been I've, I've challenged Maslow's hierarchy, and I've created um, a new structure for humans to adapt to. So I want to get that into school. So that'll be one of the things that I'm working on.
Hold on now. Wait a second. That okay? Are you able to share that hierarchy now, or do we need to wait until you? Okay, all right, okay, all right.
Yeah.
Well, I was gonna ask because I just hey, listen, that sounds juicy to me. Um,
Yes.
you know, given the work that you're doing and kind of that goal and where you want to go, um, clearly you're very spiritually grounded
Yes.
and you do move with a lot of intention. Um, who supports you right now? Who are the people that Princella gets to lean on? Because a lot of people are leaning on you, right?
Hmm.
A lot of people have found your way of thinking. A lot of people are, in your camp. But who does Princella lean on for wisdom? Who is she talking to? What does that look like for you in this world today?
It's been the same as it's always been. I lean on my own understanding because my understanding is evolving. It's an evolving understanding, it's not static. And so I think a lot. Unfortunately, there are not many people that I can talk to or lean on. It never has been, right? So if I want to learn something new, I have to go into the social media space or pick up another book. But uh, people, unfortunately, I don't have people to talk to that are above my uh, knowledge base.
Hmm.
So,
Okay.
so yeah, so yeah, they say it's lonely at the top. I don't think it's lonely. I think it's a lot of solitude and quiet time.
A
And so
hundred percent
because,
agree.
okay, so I capitalize on that quiet space, right? Because my brain don't stop. My mind does not stop running.
Hmm.
So I might say something, right? A lot of these concepts, I have been tossing these same concepts over and over for years, and they just get deeper and deeper, and I get more revelation around these concepts, so I can see more and more dimensions and more perspective. So I listen to people too. So even if I don't have anybody to talk to, I listen so much that and I think about what I hear so much that it just evolves anyway. But it would be nice to have somebody to speak to every now and then that did have a higher knowledge base, but in due time.
Yeah, in due time, for sure, for sure. Um, often when I'm talking to my wife, there are things that I personally, as a husband, see in her that uh, I can't wait for her to like reveal to the world.
Mhm.
There's often these moments that we're having, whether we having like a deep conversation or just doing business together because we both do business together. Um, she's been running her technology company for years, and a lot of times I think about. We talked earlier. You were talking about some of the societal limitations and the way we think people are supposed to be, the way women are supposed to be. Um,
Mhm.
and I realized that part of what what helps, let's put it that way, because I like to think about the positive thing. I think the thing that helps is when men can be uh can have a recognition of the power that a woman brings to every environment. I don't care if it's
Mhm.
business, I don't care if it's a problem, a conflict, I don't
Right.
care if it's an argument. A woman can shut down a whole argument in no time. Because the power of a woman's words are really, really what shape life. You said something to me that I want to bring up when we were in Miami. This is where I'm going
Yes.
with this. You said to me, and I never forget this. When you said it, I like logged it because I was like, now that's a thought. You said, if there were no men on the planet, we wouldn't have wars.
Mhm.
You said, Chris, think about all of the wars that are started. Who is it? It's two men that see differently that just got to conquer the other one, right? And I
Mhm.
was like, okay, I love history, so I'm going back and I'm like, you know what? She's right.
Mhm.
And when I thought about that, it constantly went over my mind when you and I were talking that day after we got through having a conversation. Um,
Mhm.
I was thinking to myself, huh? So what would you say to the male power structures today that exist?
Mhm.
What would you say if you were sitting across from the presidents, the kings, the dictators, the if they brought Princella into the G5's G8 summit, right? And said,
Mhm.
talk to us, Princella. What is it that we need to be able to do so that we as a society, as humans, can move forward and get out of this uh European male conquering way that we do stuff. And I know we probably don't have a whole lot of time for you to break everything down, but
Oh no!
I'm just
Oh,
curious on
trust
your
we got
thought
it.
process on this because I'll
We
never
got
forget when
enough.
you said
We got enough time. You can't tell them nothing because
that.
men are ego driven and they don't want to give up their territory. To tell them to concede to women and do what women say do in order to nurture life and not kill life in the planet, you're gonna be hard pressed. So they need to wipe themselves off the planet. Y'all gonna war until you push yourself off the edge of the planet, right? Because the male's ego is just so toxic and fragile that you can't reason with them because see they want all of Africa. They want to dig up all the gold, all the coltan. They want to harvest all of the human labor for nothing. You have to get past the ego to
Hmm.
even tell them anything. So it's like it's a waste of time to even talk to them too.
Hmm.
It's-
Yeah. Um, and again, like I said, I'll never forget that statement because it's such a they ain't talking about that on the TEDx, right? They're not talking
no.
about that in some of these larger circles where quite honestly, and I'll just tell you, like I thought that was an accurate way to look at what's happened with men um, over generations. I mean, shoot, go back to Cain and Abel fighting over
Hmm.
territory. Um,
Right.
what do you see right now as you look out? There are women now taking monster leaps in corporate America, CEO roles. I just interviewed a woman um, a couple of months ago. She was the CEO of three different companies, and she ended up now building a company helping place women in CEO positions. You see women taking the reins, movies, television, uh, social media, you start to see these things that are happening. It's like, okay, very different approach to a lot of what society would have said even 10 years ago, the way things should be done. What do you like about what you're seeing right now from how women are showing up in these different industries?
Oh, I'm enjoying it. I love it because this is prophecy. This is the divine feminine takeover. This is the natural order of things, right? And so, the story of Lucifer, trying to challenge God and being
Mm-hmm.
kicked out and given a 6,000 year rule, that was a metaphor for masculine energy trying to challenge the divine feminine. And now the
Huh.
masculine energy's time is up. You have destroyed everything. You thought you could challenge the true God and you failed. And so now you've destroyed the planet. And the only way, right now, the elites have to focus on the planet because it's in a devastating place. Patriarchy is anti nature, which has caused the entire planet harm. So you have to move back into nature's flow in order to help nature, which means that you have to go back towards a matriarchy because that's how you help the environment. Women are critical to the environment. Women are the true producers. And so we've allowed fire to burn everything. And now we got to stop fire from burning. And men, the male today, finds himself in a very uncomfortable position because the privileges that he was given in patriarchy are not given to him anymore, and he's not liking what he's seeing. However, women, when you remove the barrier and allow women to be women, this is what you see. You see women taking over because that's a woman's nature. But men have been lied to and told that the things that are natural to a woman is his job. And males have been struggling to be women because that's what society is telling them to do, be a woman. And they can't. Let a
Hmm.
woman go and let her do, and you'll see them being the CEOs. You'll see them being the top creators. You will see them doing all that because that's in their nature. And I'm happy to see it. I'm happy to see her take her throne back.
Absolutely, man, man. You know, I I have to ask you this question because I think I'd be remiss without asking. Um, what does the version that you see? What does the version of a male advocate of these principles look like? What is he doing? What how is he showing up to advocate for these principles? What does he look like in the boardroom? What does he look like in the bedroom? What does he look like at home? What does he look like in church? What does that male advocate of these principles truly look like to Princella?
Oh, it's a person out here that displays just that. Jason Wilson. If you wanna know a man who embodies these principles, it's Jason Wilson.
Okay.
Men should aspire to be him. You know who he is?
Is that my guy, Big Beard, up in he has the dojo, right?
Yes, the
Yeah.
martial arts. Yeah,
Yes, yeah,
that's
absolutely. That's the man right
that
there.
that that's the man. That is the embodiment of a man or a male who has integrated masculine and feminine and become and matriculated into manhood, right? That's what it looks like. A man with purpose, right? A
Mm-hmm.
man who adds value, a man who is self disciplined and who understands the feminine and understands that the power lies in the feminine, right? He is the embodiment of it. And there is no other person that people can readily look at off the top of my dome that I would say is that person, right? I like David Goggins, right? But David Goggins is not the example of integrating the feminine into his being. He is ultra masculine, he is ultra determined, he is on another level physically and mentally, but it's not in the sense of integrating the feminine and being empathetic. He's more on the stoic end of things. What I'm talking about is making a whole human being. That person would be Jason Wilson.
The fact that you had that in your mind, I just like, and it's crazy because I've been following him now 4 or 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I would say the same thing about him. I'd say about you. He's resolute.
Mm-hmm.
He's very careful with his words. He's balanced in his approach, but clearly he has that protective nature, and he has a set of standards that he
Mm-hmm.
chooses to live by. You're not going to cross his standards.
Correct.
There's no world where you get to cross his standards and basically live to tell about it. He's
Right.
very much an approach, and I like his approach of even getting men to um center ourselves with our sons. You know, I got two sons. I mentioned to you, you know, they're both in college now. Um, and I think one of the most, I was telling my wife this a couple years ago, I think one of the difficulties about raising sons in today's world is obviously there's so much coming at them just through the device of a phone that they have to contend with.
Mm-hmm.
But more importantly, my wife was a single mother for 10 years before we met.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell my wife the biggest regret I have, if I ever had one, is not getting to them sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Because they didn't get the opportunity to have somebody in their life at such a young age when they are formidable, when they, you know, need that structure. um that I wish I was a part of that. But then I also think about, like, I used to go to my counseling sessions, and you know, when I would talk to my counselor, I realized, like, dude, you've been living your life based on these outdated principles from 1980. um
Mm-hmm.
not outdated principles, but outdated behaviors that don't work. They're not universal. And that's when I started studying principles as opposed to the way, well, this is the way we always do it. No, that doesn't mean anything. That just means
Right.
you're too lazy to figure out what the
Mm-hmm.
principle is and how you should be living your life. And
Right.
so I realized that, you know, Jason, the way he approaches things is like, man, that's interesting that you would say he's the example,
Mm-hmm.
that you would say is the one. Have you met Jason yet?
No, but I would love to meet him, and he is definitely on the list of people to talk to.
Absolutely. Good deal. Good deal. Well, listen, man, we have been on here. How long have we been on? We've been on here an hour and 30 minutes. Your time is precious. And I know, here's what I'm going to tell you. We're doing part two. We probably going to
Okay.
do part two in person. So let's just knock that out. Um, let me say this to you. I appreciate the fact that you didn't give up
Mm-hmm.
on you. I appreciate the fact that you didn't give up on the way you think.
Mm-hmm.
That you didn't give up the the thing that you saw at night. You know, T.E. Lawrence's quote that, you know, men are dreamers, but the people who dream during the day are the most dangerous people, because boy, if they go execute, they're hard to stop, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you are definitely one of those people. Um, if there's anything that, you know, we can do on our side, as you know, with my wife and I, you know, I can't wait for us to be able to get together and kick it, because I think we'll have a whole lot of fun. But if there's anything that we can do, you know, we're absolutely, you know, here to support all that you're doing. I think you and my wife are going to end up becoming president or something. I don't know, but
Yes.
I'm always happy to see women coming together, collaborating, being willing to
Mm-hmm.
be uh, inclusive of one another and
Yes.
supportive of one another in this wild world where everybody wants to show this version that's not the full picture of what women
Right.
are. I just appreciate you, and I'm glad that you've taken this path. It's not easy, and I
Right.
can't imagine what the quiet times and what goes through your mind at times. But the fact that you keep showing up every day and you are where you are right now, money came, money coming, and to
Yes.
be able to stabilize your life, I just applaud you. Um, I'll give you the floor. Last few minutes here. What pearls of wisdom would you like to be able to share with the audience?
If the creator give you something, the creator gave it to you for a reason. And don't let nobody talk you out of it, right? When you tune into your authentic self in a fictitious world, in a matrix, people are unfamiliar with authenticity because they're so used to being fake. They're so used to suppressing them. So when people go against you, when people have things to say that are in opposition, take that as a sign that you are doing the right thing, because you should not be following the crowd. If people agree with you, right, and off the bat, you might be doing something wrong, because most people live a lie. The truth is something that hurts people and it's hard for them to accept, right? So the true you will upset programmed people. But stay the course, because over time, people will have no other choice but to accept you. Right? So stay true and do not sway from the path.
Hold on. First of all, so that's gonna be the piece that we're gonna put out immediately. You said, man, I love the way you put that. The true you will upset programmed people. If y'all don't put
Mhm.
that in the chat and screenshot that and post that everywhere, that, ladies and gentlemen, should be our daily driver. Not that we're trying to upset people, but I'm gonna be my true self, irregardless of how it makes other people feel. If I show up good, then I go to bed at night knowing I was being myself. Right?
Mhm.
Um, I appreciate you. Hey y'all, listen, y'all got a chance to see this woman. Y'all got a chance to hear her here on the Grow Your Side Business podcast. For those of you who rocked with us live, oh my God, like y'all are amazing. All of y'all showed up. Y'all were in the comments. We appreciate y'all. If you watch this replay and you enjoyed this, do me a favor. Make sure that you leave us a review, a like, a share. Make sure you go follow Princella. We will put all the information in the show notes. We will make sure that you have access to what she shares and who this woman is. And more importantly, y'all, listen, I like bringing different perspectives to helping you be able to grow a successful side business. Sometimes, y'all, it's not just about the business and how it works and moving the widgets. Sometimes it's the mindset that you brought to the table on whether or not that business will survive what it has to and succeed. So thank y'all for being here. We appreciate y'all. Listen, man, this has been another great episode live. And you know what? We'll see y'all in the next one. Take care, everybody. Have a great evening. We'll catch you guys soon.